in surprise when you hear these zombies shriek. We're so sorry, skeletons, you're so misunderstood. You only want to socialize. I don't think we should. A spooky, scary skeleton shouts startling, shrilly screams. They'll sneak from their sarcophagus and just won't leave you Spirit supernatural, Charlotte's all fuss. The bags of bones seem so unsafe, it's semi-serious. These scary skeletons are silly all the same. The smallest troubles floated by and drove you so insane.
Salutations, ghouls and freaks. Welcome to Podcast The Storm, where the insane slashers, undead blood drinkers, and all-around crooked beans convene to talk and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the Mage of Madness, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Submitted for your approval, a podcast driven by its own madness and about to enter the Twilight Zone. That will become extremely ironic in about 0.2 seconds. Hold on tight.
Yes, and hopefully our second co-host, the Nightmare of Freddy Krueger, Corrupt, will be joining us soon, and I'm your host / Scarecrow impersonator, the Brainstormer of Pop Culture. How is everyone doing tonight, whoever is here?
Well, I'm doing fine. I cannot speak for our audience if there is in fact one.
And, okay, well, with pleasantries out of the way, before we dive into the macabre and despair, a word from our sponsor. We don't have one. Wink.
Yes, we will hopefully be brought to you by you at some day along the line, but today is, alas, not that day.
Yeah. Actually, a few quick announcements before we begin. So overall, podcasts. Well, actually, I guess sorry, I will be starting a job within the coming week. It will mostly affect Offstage Soliloquy and one shots. Podcasts are fine. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's just that
we only really need to move around Friday, folks. That's the main crux of the issue here.
For the first week. Well, yeah, pretty much Friday.
Yeah, because we don't do anything on Saturdays when you'll be working, or Wednesdays when you'll be working usually. So
yeah,
only one shots and soliloquy really need be affected.
Yeah. Okay. So also, by the way, folks, we are only able to cover 4 articles this week.
Mostly because my phone was busted and I couldn't search for a another one yesterday. So
Yeah.
there.
Also, I'm trying to get into a sleep schedule for work, so I've also been busy with that, and some other house things like my dog being a complete bitch.
Well, it is a dog. That's species prerogative there.
Well, she's a female dog, and also personality-wise a bitch. She's literally and figuratively a bitch. But yeah. Also, it's been a very slow week. Last 2 weeks for Halloween themed articles.
Though our one-shot cup has been running over lately because there's a lot to cover in that dimension. Let's
granted, most of those videos are timeless.
True, but they are also very Halloween themed, and if anyone is curious if the grass is always greener, please check out our previous one-shot, wherein we knocked over the standard candle of the anti-SJW sort of movement that is Lacey Green.
It wasn't as bad as I thought it was, but God, it was stupid.
Yeah, no, she's not Anita or like ContraPoints or somebody like that. So points to Lacey for not making me completely want to blow my brains out with a brick. But yeah, that's about as well as can be said. Because the only saving grace for her was she didn't actually really get into much of anything.
Yeah. Okay, so from the Hollywood Reporter. Also, by the way, I think I forget to always mention this. If you want to check out these articles yourself, they are in the description down below.
Though heaven only knows why you would bother. Part of why we're here is so that you don't have to subject yourself to this shit.
Right. Okay. So Hollywood Reporter, Twilight Man pulls back the curtain on Twilight Zone creator Rod Sterling. This was uploaded October 1st by a Grammy McMillan. I might have said that name wrong.
I give this person points for having an interesting name. I do not, however, give interesting points to the person who came up with that title, because really, Twilight Man is the best you could come up with title-wise. I might have gone with zoning laws. Just a thought, because, creative puns and all that. And I'm judging by the awkward silence that Brainstormer is now getting his soundboard open so that he can crooked me.
I'm looking at you with a disappointment look.
Well, I'm sorry. I can't abide by an obvious pun going unnoticed.
Well, for one thing, it doesn't make any sense.
Because Twilight Zone?
Oh, no, I get it. It's just I'm not sure in the context of the...
Well, if this is supposed to be the origin of the creator of the Twilight Zone, then it sort of is by default a explainer of where the Twilight Zone gets its particular style and rules from, hence zoning laws.
The Twilight Man, Rod Sterling and the Birth of Television. I believe that is its full title.
Yeah, see, I'm aggrieved slightly that no one thought to make a pun out of it. Rod would have.
Okay. Hold on, let me look up. Cartoonist Corin Shad. I know I'm going to butcher this last name, and I am sorry. Cartoonist Corin Shadmi has crafted a biography of the pioneering television writer. That is the subheader, I believe, for this paragraph.
Okay, that's well done, and it couldn't happen to a nicer TV personality, because like Rod Serling is no joke one of my heroes. So all the more power to you.
Okay. It's been 6 decades since the world first visited a dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. As the Twilight Zone celebrates its anniversary, comic book creator Corin Shadmi has turned his attention to the man behind the show with a new biography of Rod Sterling titled suitably The Twilight Man. The Hollywood Reporter got the lowdown on the book from Shadmi himself, as well as an exclusive preview of the book ahead of its release. Okay, hold on. I'm going to look up this creator because I never heard of him.
Me either. If he shares the passion for Twilight Zone, he can't be all that bad. But I'm sorry. I've grown a little bit oversensitive to names that are unpronounceable because that's usually not a good sign in this business these days.
Well, okay, so he has there's a brief Wikipedia description. Okay. Koren Shami is an Israeli-American illustrator and cartoonist. At 17, Shadmi released his first graphic novel in Israel, Profile 107, collaboration with mentor cartoonist Uri Fink. In 2002, Shadmi relocated to New York to study at the School of Visual Arts, where he now teaches illustration. He has a few books here. Tell me if these sound familiar to you, Don. The Abaddon.
The name Abaddon is familiar, but it's from I'm remembering it more from demonology than any particular comic book. So
Love Addict. Confessions of a Serial Killer.
okay, that one rings somewhat familiar, but I don't think I ever actually read it. I remember it getting recommended to me once.
Rise of the Dungeon Master.
It's a fantastic title, and it sounds like something I would read, but I had not until this moment heard of it. Though this is definitely a good sign for Twilight Zone related things to come.
Yeah. He also apparently has a Twitter, if I remember correctly. I saw it when I was looking him up.
Almost all professionals in this day and age do have the Twitters. It's
Well,
one of the only substantive reasons to have the Twitters is to be able to directly interact with your favorite personalities.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to look through this stuff because well, I'm sure we'll find out more when we read the rest of this. Okay, I was introduced to Twilight Zone late in life and felt a strong connection between some of the episodes and my own work. Shadi told the Hollywood Reporter via email. I was curious about life of the show's enigmatic creator slash writer slash presenter. The idea took a while to come to fruition, and when I was looking for my next graphic novel, I finally took the time to read about him and was blown away. I did not know that he was such an important figure in the world of early television. He had written some very important teleplays, such as Patterns and Requiem for a Heavyweight. I was also fascinated by his wartime stories and what he could go through at such a young age.
Yeah, okay. A few things, and they are minor gripes. I'm not trying to be unnecessarily bitchy here, but to I know this person said that they got into Twilight Zone later in life and all, but to say that you see parallels between the Twilight Zone and your own works is a little bit presumptuous.
I don't think it was. I don't. Let me check again because I might have misread that or might have misheard me. Strong. No, never mind. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a little bit presumptuous, and the idea that you didn't know. Again, I cut you some slack because you're relatively new to this, but Rod Serling is one of the defining television personalities of the last 50 years at least. So yeah, that vexes me, but that's mostly excusable. Um, I will say that for any horror aficionados out there who think they're as good as Rod Serling, I would pull back significantly because I actually had a little bit of faith in Jordan Peele. And most of that faith took a header into the pavement when I saw his rendition of the Twilight Zone. So do tread carefully in the Twilight Zone. It is not exactly a welcome place for arrogant pricks. Also, minor like not red flag, but sort of yellow flag. Be wary of anyone who refers to their work as graphic novels rather than just owning the fact that they're comics. Just a helpful tip from a lifelong comics fan. Anyone who goes out of their way to use the word graphic novel instead of comic, usually a pretentious prick who refuses to own their shit. Usually.
I thought there was a difference between graphic novels and comics.
In the same way, there's a difference between like newspaper articles and novels, yes, but like to say that something is definitively not a comic or is just a graphic novel is extremely pretentious, and usually it's the result of someone wanting to make comics without actually having to deal with the stigma of owning their shit and actually just making a comic.
Don, I think that last one you're kind of reaching.
And like I said, these are mostly nitpicks on my part, but like I said, it's a yellow flag. People who purposely draw the distinction between comics and graphic novels rather than just owning the fact that they make comics are usually twats. Usually.
Well, I don't know. I'm still giving them the benefit of the doubt, and again, I do think you're reaching a little bit.
Like I said, it's just a yellow flag. It is not red yet. We are on yellow alert for twattery, not red.
Okay. The release of The Twilight Man follows the 60th anniversary of Sterling's signature achievement, October 2nd. To mark the dual dates, the Secret Movie Club, monthly event held in the Vista Theater in Los Feliz, will be screening 3 classic episodes of the original series October 20th, with staff from the Twilight Man publishers Humanoids on hand to promote and sell the book. Poster for the event featuring Shadmi's art from the book can be seen below. For those curious, the 3 episodes will be The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, A Passage for Trumpet, and At the After Hours, all from the show's first season and all written by Sterling.
Which, any Twilight Zone episodes are better than no Twilight Zone episodes, but those admittedly are not my favorites. I don't exactly know why everyone gets such a fixation on The Monsters Who Do on Maple Street. Like it's a fine episode. There is no single like awful episode of Twilight Zone, at least not in the main Serlin directed run of episodes. But that one is all 3 of those listed are mostly forgettable or on the more forgettable side of Twilight Zone episodes. Still, like I said, any Twilight Zone episodes are better than an absence of Twilight Zone episodes. So, que sera, sera.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Oh boy.
That did not portend anything positive. What the hell now?
Well, I was looking up Humanoids, like the publisher for Twilight Man.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they've worked with 2 people that we've kind of covered in the past for a comic that's.
I am braced to rip off the metaphysical band-aid.
They produce Ignited. by Mark Wade and Kwanzaa Ogiefo.
Osai GFO, yes. Oh, wow.
I mean, obviously that's just one thing from the.
I'm gonna call that another yellow flag, and we're gonna move on so that I don't wallow in abject despair for more than 5 minutes.
Right. Okay. I just thought that needed to be mentioned because I wanted to check out these publishers because it could have ended up being one of those type of publishers, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm calling it the second yellow flag, and it takes 3 yellow flags to account for 1 red flag. So there,
Right.
that is my internal maths anyway.
So 2 strikes right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. When it comes to the longevity of Sterling's classic show, Shadmi believes it's because the stories feel larger than their original context. The Twilight Zone lives on because it has a timeless quality. The stories at their base deal with issues that are deeper than they seem. He suggested adding some episodes are so well written and well done that they prove to be more durable than others. I think that's a spelling error there, missing an S. But again, that's my gripe.
Okay. I was worried there for a second the way the writers of the article were setting it up, that he was going to go on about its socio-political significance or whatever. But no, he brought it back. He stayed within the corner, marked with, merit and shit. So okay, breathe.
Much more contemporary shows in the genre. The Twilight Man will be released October 8th. And
So it's out.
Huh?
So it's out already then.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And here is the art for the interior, I believe. Doesn't look half bad. It's a little.
I like the desire to keep everything kind of in the 50s style, black and white style.
I think my major gripe is it does have that kind of flat look to it, which that's just my gripe for art.
It does look a little bit simple, but it's hard to parse what is intentional evoking of the 50s aesthetic and what is just he didn't try enough. So I'm going to give this a pass because I'm suspecting this is probably a labor of love for Rod, and I can't fault anyone for a labor of love for Rod Serling.
And I believe this is one of the not posters but covers.
I absolutely love that. That is excellent. Though I don't know why the pink letters are a thing. I would have just gone with the original Twilight Zone font.
I think that is it. It's just pink.
Yeah, I don't get the pink. The pink confuses me.
Maybe it's supposed to I don't know, maybe pop more.
Right, but in all honesty, if they had just done it in the old Twilight Zone style, I think it would have popped plenty. But
that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I'm going to just chalk this up to a stylistic difference between me and the person who made this, and we're going to move on so that I don't get unnecessarily angry at someone who I think is doing this out of the nostalgia of their own heart. So yeah.
So
That being said, if I read this book and it ends up fucking everything up, I am going to be pissed.
I might look for it when I go back to the shop later.
Yeah, because I love the Twilight Zone on a level that is probably not surprising to anyone who knows me or has been a fan of mine for a long time. But that being said, If you fuck up Twilight Zone, I will cut you.
Dial it back, Dalton. Dial it back.
There are so few beautiful untouched things in the world anymore. I'm being defensive of one of those things. Leave me alone.
I think you're taking it a little too far, but I can see where it's coming from, and
Says
do
the guy
respect
who
that.
regularly threatens to beat people's mouths with a bat until they're missing teeth.
I've never said that.
I wish I had a roll of clips because I'm pretty sure you have implied doing such things on a regular basis. But anyway, moving on.
Yeah, punch people in the face. I've said that, but never. I think you might be confusing me with Mags Visaggio.
No, you've mentioned using your bat a couple of times, and you've mentioned making people have missed teeth a couple of times. I might just be adding those together, but
Well, I mentioned I've had a bat when there's.
the point stands. I will metaphorically cut anyone who fucks up the Twilight Zone any more than it has already been fucked up.
And I say that I think you are going a little overboard. I say that as a friend. So don't cut me.
And now we can move on. I
Right,
wouldn't
okay.
cut you because you're not in charge of anything Twilight Zone related and thus couldn't fuck it up. Also, if you were in charge of anything Twilight Zone related, I don't expect you would fuck it up. I expect you would either do research on the original show to be able to do the original show justice, or you would consult with fans of the Twilight Zone so as to properly serve the IP. But anyway, moving on.
Well, most likely both.
Yeah, some combination of the two would probably be the best option. But anyway.
Okay, so this is from What Culture, and I can't believe I never thought about looking at this website for things. I am a fucking idiot.
It surprises me that we haven't come across them before.
Well, it's just that they never really do anything that's worthwhile. Like, I've checked out their YouTube videos and stuff. Nothing.
Yeah, like occasionally if I'm interested in a review for like a movie or something, then I might look at their stuff, but otherwise it's just no.
No. They seem to be pretty alright for British people.
I have no particular problem with British people in general, and most of the boys over the boys and girls over at What Culture seem to be blokes I would have a pint with, to use the British vernacular. So nothing personal against the folks over at What Culture. You're just a bit dull. In the boring way, not the stupid way.
It's the American in me. I don't know why.
Like just the mention of British people has your white blood cells going, freedom, get the tea so we can throw it overboard. Low.
Pretty much, yeah. But yeah, no. Right, okay. So, new Hellblazer series completes a plotline Neil Gaiman established in 1991. Constantine is going back to his roots, wrapping up the original books of Magic story arc. This does not say who it's by.
Yeah, I'm incredulous, shall we say, about this, because like obviously I'm a fan of Magic user characters, and obviously I'm a fan of Neil Gaiman. So the four issue series called Books of Magic, that ran in 1991 is very obviously one of my favorite standalone stories. And yes, there were Books of Magic continuations, and most of them that I've seen have been worthwhile. I just haven't been quite as religiously fanatical or meticulous about getting a hold of all of the above. So I'm not, how you say, having high hopes over this, because the modern Books of Magic is kind of shit in comparison to the original Books of Magic. And I think unless Neil himself is writing it directly, then this seems like a pale imitation. But I've been wrong before, and more Constantine written by things associated with Neil Gaiman is good.
The hell was that?
Huh?
Nah, that hurts something. Never mind.
Okay, that must have been on your end, because I heard nothing weird. But anyway, proceed.
Right. Okay. Remember that series about a 12-year-old bespectacled British boy who's destined to become the world's greatest wizard? You know the story. He's taught the ways of magic by older mages until one of them betrays him and tries to kill him. I'm talking about Books of Magic from DC Comics, of course.
Yeah, funny story about this. Books of Magic did it first, and there's a high likelihood, by which I mean I'm fairly certain that J.K. Rowling straight up ripped off Neil Gaiman. Because the Harry Potter books, unless I missed my guess, didn't come out until like 93, 95-ish. And of course, Books of Magic came out in 1991.
Wait, I thought it came out in '99.
Harry Potter,
Harry Potter.
the book series?
Yeah.
Yeah. So point being, I am reasonably certain that Harry Potter is just a second-rate Tim Hunter ripoff.
Oh no, wait. I'm thinking of the movie, like the first movie.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna say, because I could have sworn that the books came out in like 94, 95, and then the movie came out in 99. Because I remember being 4 years old when I saw the first Harry Potter movie in the theater, and I was born in 95. So yeah, that makes sense. But yes, for anyone who makes all of the second-rate Harry Potter jokes, Gaiman did it first, and Books of Magic did it first. And speaking of someone who has read both sides of this argument, I'm gonna hazard a guess and say that DC also did it better. So, you Potterheads who might be listening to this, you may bite me.
I was gonna say something as both a reference and as a joke, but I kind of need the cripple pass. Or do I still have that?
Yes, you still have that. Go with the joke.
Okay. So, in a way that follows up Dalton's phrase, you can bite his crippled ass. If anyone knows that reference, feel free to leave a comment.
You can in fact do exactly that. If you want to argue with me over the merits of Neil Gaiman's Books of Magic versus the merits of J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series.
I never got into Harry Potter. I tried reading the first book years ago. It was kind of boring, to be honest.
There was a time when I was very, very young that I was very, very into that series, and I kind of stayed loyal to the series anyway because, I am a nerd and that's what we do. But that being said, as a lover of geek things, I really wish that my generation had started out with a excuse to read that wasn't Harry Potter. And as a nerd who is specifically magic oriented, Harry Potter is lame as fuck. And as someone who actually has studied magic and the occult, good lord, Harry Potter is shit in the accuracy of magic department.
Yeah, okay. The original four-part Books of Magic miniseries about the adolescent Timothy Hunter by Neil Gaiman ended in 1991 and featured the laughing magician himself, John Constantine, as one of the mages showing Tim the magical ropes.
Yes. as per usual, Johnny was an asshole, but that is what you go to John Constantine for.
He has the nickname the Laughing Magician.
It's not a nickname; it's a title, because his family bloodline are referred to as the Laughing Magicians.
It's
it's
still
where he
kind of
gets. It is kind of dumb. Yeah, I'll give you that. But the reason why is because his family are a bunch of like wandering gypsy-esque tricksters. That's where that title comes from. And
that makes sense.
yeah, and the residual blood magic that he inherited from that bloodline is where he gets like 80% of all of his magical affinity from.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Interestingly though, John is objectively the worst outcome for his family bloodline, because there was an entire storyline once in the comics where John found out that his brother from a parallel universe had cursed him from the other side of the multiverse. And it's because in the mainline DC universe, John John and his brother were supposed to be fraternal twins, and in the process of giving birth to John accidentally strangled his twin brother in the womb with his umbilical cord. And that's particularly bad when you consider that his brother was supposed to be basically the magical equivalent of a messiah and be like the next King Arthur and shit. So in the universe where that golden child did survive, he basically took it upon himself to have a vendetta against John and curse him from a universe away, basically.
Very un-King Arthur-like and Messiah-like.
Yeah, it turns out the golden boy is a privileged, spoiled brat because, people telling you you're supposed to be given all the great things in the world will kind of do that to you. When people tell you from the age of basically 1 you're going to be the chosen one and you're basically omnipotent, it turns you into kind of an asshole. Who knew?
Maybe that's why I like characters who get the sheep beating out of them as pretty much as soon as they're born.
Yeah, and
They have to earn that shit.
the fallout of that storyline was basically if John Constantine is the worst version of himself throughout the multiverse, then his self must overall be pretty good, because even though John is objectively speaking the worst version of himself, he still manages to get things done and he still manages to master the dark arts to the degree that he has. So even when he's the worst version of himself, he's still pretty freaking awesome. Is basically the moral of the story.
In the final issue of that miniseries, Mr. E. Huh.
Yeah.
Mr. E, who argued that Hunter was dangerous and should be killed the moment the older mages discovered him, takes Tim to the future, where they encounter a bloodied and beaten Constantine in the midst of the final magical conflict of that age. And John tells him E had the right idea, that he should have strangled Tim himself. God damn.
To be fair, this was a John Constantine who had lived through several apocalyptic futures by that point, so yeah, him being kind of black-pilled is understandable. But still, because I love you, John, I must say, God damn it, you're an asshole sometimes. Oh, Johnny.
Okay. It turns out in the future, Tim Hunter leads all the malevolent, arcane, and infernal forces in a war against the heroes of Earth. Of course, this was confirmed immediately afterward to be just one of infinite possible futures, and it was, of course, averted.
Yeah.
Until now.
So, are they going to bring it back, or are they just going to allude to it, or what?
I hope they don't do the Terminator thing, where it's essentially
Inevitable.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then you start to get the fucking time travel confusion thing, and
Yeah, and even though I don't really like Tim Hunter as a character, he's probably actually my least favorite magic user character in the entire DC like multiverse. He did like have a character building thing where like they told him he was supposed to bring about the end of the world, and he was just like, no, fuck that shit. I'm not doing it.
so
And
Hellboy.
then they avoided it. So are they going to shit all over Tim Hunter's personal growth win, or are they going to set things up for another possible future, or is this going to be the Tim Hunter from the modern Books of Magic series, which, as I said, is not nearly as good as the original? Or how are they going to do this? Is my question.
DC recently previewed the first few pages of the upcoming Hellblazer series, which launches later this month. And in addition to its beautiful art and the exciting return to form for Johnny Conjob, the specific events and dialogue in the preview are notable for how unmistakable familiar they are.
Okay, explain, because that could mean a lot of different things.
John Constantine, Tim Hunter, Tim, yes. I thought you were such a nice kid. Should have strangled you myself 15 years ago, or let them kill you. Would have saved us all a lot of grief. He had the right idea. What are you talking about, John? We're friends, and that is the end of the preview.
Okay, so question. Are they going to address this to the original Timothy Hunter, which I believe was the Timothy Hunter of Earth 2, technically? Or are they going to address this to the new Tim Hunter, who shouldn't be 15 years older by now?
Alright. The darkest timeline version of the future seen in the original Books of Magic story is the definitive present timeline of the new Hellblazer series.
Okay,
And
so in other words, you're putting John Constantine in the middle of an apocalypse. An apocalypse that should have already been averted already.
And we're seeing it from Constantine perspective now.
I'm sorry, I know that sounds in theory kind of awesome, and I hope it is and all, but the thing about John is he has this stupid amount of luck that basically makes him able to get himself into and out of the most impossible of circumstances. So sticking him in the middle of an apocalypse when he's already kind of a borderline nihilistic fuck sometimes means that this is probably going to be some dull, edgy, boring shit.
This is particularly interesting since the first time around, Tim grew into adulthood in the subsequent Names of Magic series, and these events never took place. The strangest part about this timeline of events is that when Mr. E showed Tim his ominous future, he said it would take place 15 years later. That was in 1991. In 2006, 15 years later, DC concluded the Days of Vengeance story with Nabu stating that his death marked the end of the 10th Age of Magic. Timothy Hunter wasn't involved in that conflict, though, which seemed to confirm that he changed his path.
Yes, and now you see the problem. This basically flies in the face of all established canon, and it's not even a particularly good idea. in the first place?
It's doubtful that the Day of Vengeance writers were knowingly alluding to the events foreshadowed in the books of magic by depicting a similar event leading to similar results within the exact time frame Gaiman established. That's just a crazy coincidence.
Or Neil Gaiman is inspired, because that tends to be how he handles most things. I am reasonably convinced of this. Part of me thinks that Neil Gaiman is a prophet, but does not know that he is a prophet, because he basically does all the things that the old school prophets used to do in like ancient Greece and shit. Which probably means that no one should tell him that he is, because then it might stop, but still, Neil Gaiman tends to be a very prescient motherfucker. And I can't help but think that means he has some friends in some very high and very old places.
This time around, however, there's no denying that C. Spurrier is writing Hellblazer with books of magic in mind. So it's not being written by Neil Gaiman. And I'm going to look up Mr. Spurrier in a moment. Hold on.
This does not bode well.
Okay, so I found him. Simon C. Spurrier is a British comics writer and novelist who has previously worked as a cook, a bookseller, and an art director for the BBC.
Oh god, the BBC. That could be very, very good or very, very bad, depending.
Books include Six Gun Gorilla, number 6, Godshaper, Jim Henson's Labyrinth.
Okay, that Labyrinth comic was good. Okay, I'm
Coronation.
okay. I'm on board with this. The comics based on Labyrinth were amazing as far as I'm concerned. So yay.
The Spire, the Cold, like like Coaling the Week or something like that.
Yeah.
Lord of the Night, Disenchanted, Weavers, X-Men, Legacy.
Okay. This can work, but I still question the merits of sticking it in the deliberately over the top, edgy, and stupid post-apocalyptic timeline.
Oh, he wrote Dark Crystal comic in 2017. Jim Henson.
Okay, this could in fact go very, very well then.
Jim Henson's The Power of the Dark Crystal.
Okay, now you have my attention. But still, you're sticking it in the unnecessarily dark and meaninglessly edgy timeline. So be very, very careful, please.
Also some, I believe, 40K stuff.
That's a bit of a mixed bag, because recently they've started SJWing 40K.
Actually, I believe this is stuff from, well, one was Fire Warrior from 2003.
Okay, so before the wokening of the 40K universe.
Are they really doing that?
Yes. There's actually a YouTuber by the name of Arch Warhammer who kind of his specialty is talking about the various ways they've weaved their way into the 40K universe.
It never really made, huh. I'll be honest, it kind of makes, no, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't really seem like anything SJW would ever work in that universe.
And therein lies the problem. They are insisting against all lore to the contrary that the 40K universe be made into an SJW universe.
He has also apparently worked on a comic called Crossed.
Okay, that I have heard of, and that was very good, and now you have my attention.
Also some Doctor Who stuff.
Okay, that could be a mixed bag because the Doctor Who comics have always kind of fluctuated back and forth between being very good and not very.
And some The Dreaming.
As in the modern Dreaming or the old Dreaming?
It said 2019, 2018. So
The new shit. Sigh.
The Shadow Leviathan. That's
hmm
18. Okay, I was just checking out this guy because I was curious.
So this could work if they're very, very careful and they find some way of working out the stupid, unnecessarily edgy part of post-apocalyptic universe.
Mm. We're already on our third article.
Yeah, this week went somewhat quickly, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have included that 50 Twilight Zone episodes one that I sent you.
Next week.
Okay.
All right. Screen Rant. The 10 best episodes of Tales from the Crypt according to IMDb.
Okay, I can't see how you can fuck this up, but then again, I couldn't see how comic was it CBR that did the Marvel and DC horror
Yes.
comic list?
Yeah.
I couldn't see how they could fuck up a top 10 list either, but they did manage to do it and it disappointed me. So let's have it, Screen Rant. What do you have?
All right. Based on the 1950s comics on the same name, Tales from the Crypt was a horror anthology that focused on a new theme or idea each episode. At the bookends of each episode, the Crypt Keeper, played by John Kessier, gives a brief glimpse into what the upcoming story will be about and ends noting the character's demise with a pun.
Yep.
With 93 episodes, the show had a hefty following, even with it being an HBO exclusive show. With a
Wait, it
reboot,
only made it to 93? Damn, I thought it went over 100.
that is dead. That was the Shyamalan one I was talking about.
Mhm.
There was time to look back at the series that happened. Not every episode was a winner, but the list focuses on ones that were. Using IMDb's rating system, it's time to look at the 10 best episodes of Tales from the Crypt.
Okay, let's have it.
Number 10, Cutting Cards, 7.8.
Was this the one where they played poker with the devil? I think this might have been the one where they played poker with the devil.
Yeah, okay. Chopping Cards would have been a better title for this intense episode of one-upmanship. After returning from a year-long stay in Las Vegas, Reno Crevis, Lance Henriksen, comes home and heads directly to the local casino where he meets with an old opponent, Sam Forney. Kevin Tiggy. Tiggy? I don't.
I think that one might be wait. As in Marvel Cinematic Universe Kevin Feige?
No, it's Tighe.
Okay. I was gonna say, because I don't remember him ever being in that, but if he was ever in an episode, he just somehow managed to get more nerd points. But yeah.
The two agree to a game of Russian roulette, but the bullet ends up being a dud. Then they agree to a game of chop poker. The winner of each hand gets to chop off a part of the other. They go on for the rest of the episode until it cuts to a scene where the two are in a hospital playing checkers, neither of them having arms.
Oh, okay. Now I remember the episode. Yeah, this one was interesting, but it was mostly interesting in the kind of darkly funny way rather than the like legit spooky kind of way.
Don't gamble, kids. You'll end up like those dumbasses.
Sometimes gambling costs an arm and a leg. Even the crypt keeper is wishing he was dead after that one.
And I'm also giving you the look of disappointment twice.
I know.
Okay. Number 9, The Ventriloquist Dummy, 7.8.
This is the usual haunted dummy plot that literally every show from the Twilight Zone to Goosebumps has done. And it was done pretty well here, so I'm not gonna complain.
As if dolls and dummies weren't scary enough, throw in a mutation to really horrify the crowd. Mr. Ingalls, Don Rickles, is a ventriloquist who loses his hand and girlfriend in a fire. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
15 years after, Billy Bobcat Goldthwait. Huh. Okay. Is an up-and-coming ventriloquist who runs into Mr. Ingalls. After finding the dead body of the woman that Mr. Ingalls was with, Billy goes after him. After Billy scolds him for duping, Mr. Ingalls reveals that his mannequin has been his murderous twin brother Morty attached to his hand. Mr. Ingalls cuts Morty off and is then killed by an unrestricted Morty. Billy and Morty make a deal to work together, but Morty merges himself into Billy. I'll be honest, doesn't sound that great.
No, it was just kind of an okay episode.
Okay. And All Through the House, number 8, with a ranking of 7.9.
Oh, I think this is the Christmas episode. Yay.
Typically, Christmas episodes are not rated very highly, but Tales from the Crypt manages to keep the holiday season slaying.
I think that's the first time something other than me listened to the cricket. Yay.
I'm also giving the disappointed look. A woman named Elizabeth kicks off the episode by murdering her husband on Christmas Eve with a fire poker, before calling her lover to let him know the job was done. She then goes to dispose of the body, not knowing another murderer was waiting dressed as Santa. After a tussle with Santa, Elizabeth attempts to frame him for the murder. Elizabeth accidentally locks herself in a closet, but escapes to find her daughter, Carrie, missing. When Carrie is found by Elizabeth, she says that she's let Santa in. The episode ends with Santa asking, naughty or nice? Sounds okay. Yeah, it sounds okay. Sounds interesting. Okay. Forever Ambergris. 7.9. Number 7. I've never heard of that. Granted, I'm not well versed in.
I'm having a hard time remembering this one, but maybe you can.
Okay, well let me read the description here. Steve Buscemi leads this episode as a photographer named Isaac and ends up melting for the viewer's entertainment. Dalton, Roger Daltrey, is in awe of the talent displayed by Isaac's wife. The two men are war photographers, but Isaac is better as Dalton has lost his touch. Dalton comes up with a plan to get rid of Isaac and take over his life. On an expedition, Dalton forces Isaac into some contaminated lands where he catches some illness that starts to destroy his body rapidly. While Isaac figures it out, he is too late to do anything as parts of him fall apart. Dalton returns to Isaac's wife, Bobby. They smoke and have sex as Bobby tells them they have the same illness. Dalton runs to the bathroom as his nose falls off.
The best laid plans of mice, men, and Daltons, I guess.
Oh yeah, your name is Dalton. Huh.
That was probably the most funny part of that description. I don't remember this episode, which is ironic considering that, you know.
It has Steve Buscemi, who's one of the most iconic looking men I know in Hollywood. Not know personally, but uh, huh.
Yeah, I don't remember this one.
All right, number 6, Abracadaver, rank 8.
Really, this one got number 8.
No, it's
I
not
didn't.
8. It's number 6.
Oh, well, still, this one, I don't recall this one being very good. I thought this one was kind of a dud.
Clearly, you might be in the minority of that.
Maybe. Proceed.
Sibling problems come to a head with heart-stopping drugs. Martin, Beau Bridges, and Carl, Tony Goldwyn, are both students in a medical school. After Martin loses the use of his hands thanks to a prank by Carl, he holds a lifelong vendetta against his brother. Martin eventually poisons Carl, now his boss and primary funder. Most of the episode is shot through the now only alive in his brain Carl, who is seeing the torturous things his brother is doing to him. It is eventually revealed that Martin was testing a new drug on Carl and he was never in danger, but Carl has a real heart attack and dies.
Yeah, like I said, this one was kind of a dud. I'm surprised to see it here.
All right, number 5, The New Arrival, rank 8.
Okay, let's have it.
Radio psychologist takes rating gold to the extreme by meeting a bad child. Uh, Psychologist Dan Allen Gort's David Warner is about to lose his radio show when a distressed mother, Nora Zelda Rubinstein, Zelda, okay, calls to ask the doctor to come out and help. He agrees to do so along with his producer Bonnie Twiggy and boss Rona, Joan Severance. Um, Nora is shown to be crazy, believing that General Douglas MacArthur was going to return home from the war, World War II, at any moment. Rona is found dead in a child's bed. Bonnie is chopped up by a ceiling fan, and Dr. Gortz is chained up. The daughter is revealed to be a zombie, and Dr. Gortz is left with her.
Oh, okay. I think I know this one. This one was pretty fun, yeah.
Number 5. Okay, number 4, Death of Some Salesman, 8.5. 8.1. Tim Curry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this one.
Yeah, it's ranked number 4, by the way. Just matter. Tim Curry plays many roles in this family affair. Judd, Ed Begley Jr., is a con man pretending to be a cemetery plot salesman who goes out searching for recently deceased people's families in hopes of a sale. He cons one house and then moves on to the next where he meets Ma and Pa Brackett, both Curry. After getting some cold coffee, he opens the microwave to find a severed head. After being knocked out, Judd meets the daughter Winona Curry, who is depicted as dirty and ugly. The two have sex and get married as Judd believes he'll get $50,000. After believing all the family is dead, Judd accidentally digs his own grave and is killed after having been scammed by the family. Huh.
Yeah, it's mostly remarkable for Tim Curry's performance, because if you've ever seen Tim Curry, you know how over the top he can get, and he really turns it up to all 100 here.
My favorite one is from that Fern Gully movie.
What was his name in that?
I don't know, but I remember the song "Toxic Love."
I like, in terms of villain roles, I think his best was as Darkness in Legend. He was the devil that they couldn't call the devil because they didn't want to offend religious people.
Yeah.
Although my favorite role of him of all time is probably Wadsworth the Butler from Clue, who I don't think was the villain, despite the open-ended ending.
Just looking at the cast for Fern Gully. Hexus.
I thought that was it, but I didn't want to be mistaken.
Robin Williams was also in that movie.
Yes, he was Betty.
Betty Coda.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Number 3, Television Terror, with a score of 8.2.
That's another one I don't quite remember. Yeah, I haven't binged Tales from the Crypt in a while. I should do that.
Exploring a mass murder site is never a good idea for public broadcast. Horton Rivers, Morton Downey Jr. is a field shock reporter going in to explore the supposedly haunted house of a mass murderer named Ada Ritter. It is noted that Horton is sleeping with his producer Sam, Dorothy Park, telling her she needs some killer instinct. While exploring, there are flashbacks to the murders that happened in the past. After hearing some spooky noises, the camera goes dead after a prolonged period of intense tension. Horton notices his cameraman hung dead and is attacked by the ghost of Ada Ritter. Okay. I mean, it doesn't sound. I think it all depends. I think it's the atmosphere of the episode than anything. Story's kind of.
It usually is, in the same way that it is in like a Goosebumps episode, the kind of campy, sort of thrilling spookiness vibe. Think Goosebumps, but for adults, is kind of what Tales from the Crypt was.
Right. Okay. Number 2, Yellow, with a score of 8.3. Father's.
Gee, I'm having a hard time remembering these.
I thought we covered this one last week.
You're right. I do remember us covering it, but I don't remember exactly why or what it was about.
I think it was about people that you didn't know were in Tales of the Crypt.
Right. No, I remember the article from last week that we covered. I'm just having a hard time remembering what this one was.
Right. A father-son war story that broaches the line between horror and realism. Yellow follows the actions of Lieutenant Calthrob Eric Douglas as he engages with the war in the trenches of World War One. Sergeant Ripper, Lance Henriksen, attempts to find Lieutenant Calthrob, only to be told to retreat. Ripper and Captain Milligan, Dan Aykroyd, argue about the cowardly behavior. During the mission, Lieutenant Calthrob runs away, and a wounded wounded Ripper snitches. Lieutenant Calthrob is arrested and charged with abandoning his squad, set to be killed by a firing squad in the morning. That night, his father, General Calthrob, Kirk Douglas, tells him that he needs to fake his death in the morning, as he will fill all the guns with blanks. Lieutenant
Right.
Calthrob.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
Lieutenant Calthrob is shot and killed. General Calthrob notes that he lied so his son wouldn't appear cowardly at death.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 1, what's cooking? 8.5.
Interesting choice for number 1, and this one I actually vaguely do remember. Yay.
George Reeves, Meatloaf, Art Lafleur, Judd Nelson, and Bess Armstrong star in this cannibal tale. Set in a squid-based diner owned by Fred Reeves and Irma Armstrong, the busboy Gaston, Judd Nelson, offers to help the owners by introducing a barbecue menu. After being rejected, he sees the landlord Chumley, Meatloaf, giving the owners a hard time. Gaston takes the initiative, killing Chumley and portioning his meat. After feeding a Chumley steak to a local cop, Lafleur, Fred finds out about the murder, but keeps serving the human meat. After trying to turn the couple against each other, Gaston is cooked by Farley, Fred, and Irma.
No one cooks like Gaston. No one looks like Gaston. No
No one
one
tastes like Gaston.
No one caramelizes in the oven like Gaston.
That got dark.
He's
But
the
like I
guy
said, there
so
was
good at emaciating. My, what a guy that Gaston.
But like I had said, we have Ahsoka Tano Gaming. So what are we doing? Not much. We're actually about finished with our podcast. Kind of a short one.
Yeah, this was a very quick week.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, last article. Horror homeroom. Top 10 spine-tingling goosebumps episodes. This is like a little bit about 3 years old.
Well, I mean, Goosebumps came out a long time ago, so I would imagine it would.
Yeah, I remember. I remember they started to release the Haunting Hour,
which was mostly a very good show, actually.
Yeah, I remember. I liked a lot of the. I remember the Halloween episodes. I liked a lot for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm. My favorite episode, probably for equally obvious reason, was My Sister the Witch and the Most Evil Sorcerer two-parter.
So Katana Gaming. So were you talking about cooking people? No, we were just talking about Tales from the Crypt and how they had one episode.
We were counting down the 10 best Tales from the Crypt episodes according to IMDb, and I disagreed with most of them because on the ground that I couldn't remember half of the episodes they picked. And given how many times I have watched Tales from the Crypt, that should be saying something. But we got a lot of jokes out of the guy in the number 1 story being Gaston. So we did a parody of Gaston.
Like with Goosebumps, one of my favorite episodes involves comic books. I can't remember what it was called, but essentially,
wasn't it like Enter the Mutant or something like that?
Attack of the Mutant from Goosebumps, but the one I'm talking about is from The Haunting Hour, where basically like this guy steals paintbrushes from his favorite artist, and
Oh, right. Yep, that episode. Now I remember.
yeah, I can't remember what it was called. It's a
You
really
might like Tales from the Crypt then, because every episode begins by referencing the comic that it came from, essentially.
I remember the girl turning into a pig episode. Sokatana Gaming, by the way.
Girl turning into a pig episode. That one I don't remember.
I like the haunted mess, but by the way, Sokatana Gaming, are you referring to Goosebumps or are you referring to Tales from the Crypt for the girl?
He must be referring to either Goosebumps or The Haunting Hour, because I don't think there was a girl turning into a pig episode of Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
Unless I'm really misremembering, which might happen, because I've watched basically all of these horror anthologies except for Outer Limits, because Outer Limits never really grabbed me. Anyway, let's get some goosebumps, shall we?
Okay, with pumpkins abounding and the bite of frost in the air, it's time to take a look again at that classic horror series for kids from the 1990s and early 2000s, R.L. Stein's Goosebumps. For generations of fans, Goosebumps was their first entry point into horror, with plots running the gamut from ghosts to monsters to possession. No horror trope was off the table, and the series remains an excellent example of how horror can be reconfigured for younger audiences in such a way that its bite stays firmly intact.
See, but this is the thing about Goosebumps. I always saw it as something similar to like Addams Family, in that you weren't supposed to actually be afraid. You were just supposed to be in on the kind of joke of the spookiness. It was supposed to be deliberately over the top.
Right.
Maybe that's because I have a really dark sense of humor and it takes a lot to actually scare me, but I always saw Goosebumps more as being self-aware most of the time, kind of like Twilight Zone.
Yeah. Goosebumps, by the way, the girl turning into a pig. I don't remember that episode, unfortunately. Granted, I never really watched a lot of episodes of Goosebumps.
Wait, was that how Be Careful What You Wish For episode ended in the series? Because I know they changed the ending of that for the show.
Huh.
It sounds like something that might have happened in the Be Careful What You Wish For episode, but I don't
I
remember.
You know what's funny? The book series I remember most from R.L. Stein was Rotten School.
And not even I have read that one.
Oh, I read it in elementary school. Can't remember. I think it was that. I have to look that up just so I'm clear. But yeah, hold on. Okay. Goosebumps is especially worth a watch for both its storytelling prowess and creepy atmosphere. So if you want to curl up at home with these goody oldies but goodies, here's where to start. And you can find them all on Netflix. I really need to get my Netflix again.
Yeah, all of Goosebumps is on there. All of Haunting Hour used to be on there as well, but I don't think it still is, unfortunately.
Yeah. Here's my ranking for the top 10 episodes of Goosebumps. Oh, by the way, the writer of this is Elizabeth Irwin. Oh, nice to have alliteration.
Okay, Elizabeth, let's see what you've got.
Number 10, Say Cheese and Die. Original air date February 9th, 1996.
Yeah, no complaints here. This was a really great episode. No wonder it spawned a sequel in book form. I don't know if they ever actually did it in show form, but I know there was a sequel book series or a sequel book. To
I
Say
believe
Cheese
there
and
was
Die.
also a sequel episode as well.
Oh, did they follow it up? Okay, that's good. Yeah,
Um,
this
before
this one this one is one of the classics, and it takes a lot of its premise from an old Twilight Zone episode. If anyone's curious.
Mhm. Yeah, hold on. Before his face graced a million "Hey Girl" memes, Ryan Gosling was throwing it down horror style in this 1996 classic episode.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
That was Ryan Gosling?
I believe so, and I didn't even notice the picture until now, but that's him.
Aw, he was so cute before he became everyone's annoying crush.
Right. Stein was clearly ahead of the found footage curve with this story of two boys who discovered a cursed camera with dire results. If you enjoy ironic dialogue, this one is hard to beat, but its real claim to fame is its location. A seemingly run-down house chock full of spooky yet appealing gadgets, which would easily double as a lair for a supervillain.
You are not wrong, and that is correct. And also, this episode is awesome. So I'm allowing some of the unnecessarily flamboyant language.
Rotten School, that's what it was called. I can't remember what it was called at first.
Hmm.
Okay. Number 9, Stay Out of the Basement. Original air date January 27th, January 7th, 1996. I don't know why I'm going to say 2017.
I liked that one as well. Although this one was more funny than the other one.
Oh, I missed those. Okay. There are a book series with the haunted mask and characters and kids from the other Goosebumps books. There was a okay. Am I the only one that loves the Goosebumps Choose Your Own Adventure books? There are books of Choose Your Own Adventures from Goosebumps.
Yes, there were a couple Choose Your Own Adventure Goosebumps books. I remember reading one a long time ago. I was in
My
like middle
my
school.
my elementary school did not have those.
Yeah, my I want to say sixth or seventh grade reading teacher had all of the Goosebumps books, all of the Nancy Drew books, and all of the Hardy Boys books on her bookshelf in her classroom. So whenever we needed to do an accelerated reader type thing.
Well, also keep in mind, I started reading these books when I was in elementary school,
Hmm.
and they didn't always have the books there when I would go to the library in my elementary school.
I'm sure there must be a Goosebumps box set that you can get. It'd probably be pretty expensive, but also probably would be pretty worth it.
Yeah. Okay. While it tends to be mothers who get dragged for their poor parenting choices in horror, this episode refocuses that trope on the father. Margaret and Cassie's dad gets fired from his job and starts holing up in the basement. When the children sneak downstairs against their father's wishes, they discover that their botanist father is not what he appears to be. The end result reminds them that you can never really know another person, even your parents.
Yeah, the dad in this was a massive dick. It's one of the things that keeps me from enjoying it as much as the other one.
Okay. Um. There was my my middle school has them or had them. There's one for like $100.
Yeah, I know there's a sweet blissful fuck ton of Goosebump books.
There was there were these this book series that revolved around Horrorland, and I liked I got a few of them, but I ended up losing them or they ended up getting trashed.
Who throws
No,
away
I didn't
books?
throw them. I didn't throw them away. I didn't keep good care of them.
Oh, okay. I'm just like, why would anyone throw away books? I
I
mean,
I am not. I would never throw away a book. No,
no,
but
I know that, but the way you were describing it made me wonder if like your mom had seen one of them lying somewhere and was just like, fuck this, because
right. It was Uh, uh, yeah, it was Goosebumps Horrorland miniseries. I've read a few of them, and some of them revolved around some comic stuff. And again, I never pass up on that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you should look up the book series where multiple people from the countless books of Goosebumps come together to defeat their enemies in one final enemy. I'm gonna be honest. I think the book series of like the 1990s and 2000s were kind of better than what we get today.
Yeah, they were.
It took place on a haunted carnival or pier, so you might be thinking of the Goosebumps Horrorland thing.
Either way, that sounds like a really awesome series, and it doesn't surprise me that RL brought them back. By the way, have either of you guys seen the movie, the Jack Black movie that came out a couple years ago?
Yeah,
I liked it. It wasn't great or anything, but it was cute at least.
it has my problems with a lot of modern movies.
Hmm.
Too much comedy, not anything else.
A little bit, yeah. But at least it wasn't the sequel. The sequel was bad.
Yeah, it's it's Goosebumps Horrorland series. Right. Okay. So number 8, or One Day at Horrorland. Original air date October 25th, 1997. The typical family vacation becomes atypical when the Morris family stumbles upon an amusement park where the monsters appear disturbingly real. With what sets that up the creep factor and memorable scenes such as a runaway casket. This episode is a good example of how the series infused subtle comedy into its horror. It also confirmed for children that sometimes family time is a real drag.
See, I don't think it infused comedy into its horror so much as it infused horror into its comedy. But then again, like I said, I have a very dark sense of humor. So
Yeah. Yeah. Sokatana Gaming, you're right. Mediocre at worst and a tiny bit good at best for the Goosebumps movie. That's kind of my feelings.
like I said, it's not great or anything, but I can enjoy it, like especially around Halloween. I think it works. But
Yeah.
But the sequel was
Well,
God.
I think I have a topic for offstage soliloquy now. So that's good. I'm not gonna say, yeah.
Okay. Well, keep me posted. Anyway, moving right
Well, it
on.
involves Goosebumps, obviously.
Yeah. But as much as I thought Horrorland was kind of forgettable, I'm surprised to see it this low, just because I know I'm in the minority of people who, because people who like Goosebumps tend to go all gaga over Horrorland.
I think it's more the concept than anything than the actual episode.
I think the reason Horrorland doesn't resonate with me as much as other people is because I think Horrorland, they tried to play a little bit too straight, and honestly, I wouldn't be afraid in a amusement park with real monsters.
Yeah. Okay. So I had access to thousands of books to check. Oh, no, wait. I got into them in middle school. I worked as the library assistant. So I had access to thousands of books to check out, and I had read every book in that library and got to keep a few Goosebumps books that were trashed, and I repaired them.
So you're saying you were a very, very lucky bastard in middle school. Good for you.
I actually applied for my senior year. Well, I thought about applying for my senior year to work as an assistant for my library in high school.
When it got time for us to do what was called our senior project, where we all had to volunteer somewhere, I ended up volunteering at our local library.
Yeah.
That was fun, although like I think I've mentioned before, if I never hear the name James Patterson or Tom Clancy ever again, it would be too soon, because that was
Ahsoka,
what that was basically all of anything people wanted.
Ahsoka Tano Gaming, I like the concept of Horrorland, but they didn't do the concept well, in my opinion. Yeah, agreed.
Mm-hmm. I think if they had played it more for laughs, it would have worked better. Or if they had just gone and bit the bullet and made it entirely horrific, that would have also made it better. But as it sits, it's just kind of stuck somewhere in the middle. They really needed to pick a lane. Either make this really funny and campy, or make this genuinely horrifying. Either one is good, but it needs to do something.
Right. Number 7, The Girl Who Cried Monster. Original air date, November 11th, 1995.
This one was fine.
Yeah.
I don't really have any negative opinions on this, but it's not one of my favorites.
As someone who, at a disturbingly young age, used to haunt the library in search of real crime stories, it is impossible for me not to love Lucy, a similarly obsessed reader of all things macabre. When she discovers that the librarian is actually a feigned monster, the stage is set for a showdown that ends in the most delicious of twists. Stein's The Girl Who Cried Monster is a particularly good novel and must read for readers like Lucy who love horror.
Yeah, I do remember kind of relating to her as the protagonist, but aside from that, I don't really have any opinions on this episode.
Number 6, The Perfect School. I saw that one. Original air date, November 15th, 1997. Hey, 3 years and a day before my birthday. Well, 3 years before I was born and 1 day before my birthday. Alright, less an exercise in the grotesque and more an exploration of the dangers of science run amok. This story, Ahsoka Tano Gaming, it had ever known mass murderer and serial killer. Oh no, wait, I forgot one. I loved horror and true crime novels in high school. I read the Murderer's Encyclopedia. It had every known mass murderer and serial killer. You forgot a Y on every Ahsoka. Sorry, again, it's a grammar thing for me. I'm more surprised that there is an encyclopedia for murderers.
I'm not surprised, given that there's actually a subcategory of antique collecting called murderabilia. That doesn't surprise me.
With their aliases and the true names if they had been found out. Not my cup of tea, but whatever floats your boat.
I probably would have enjoyed that if I had found that as a kid, because I've always been fascinated with like aberrant psychologies and whatnot.
If I had read that in my home, they would have had me go to a therapist.
I'm amazed you haven't gone to a therapist many times before.
Once or twice wasn't for me.
Yeah, the guy that I went to when I sought out therapy literally just called me crazy and said I needed to get over things, and basically said he was going to offer no help whatsoever. And I walked out.
Yeah.
Because that's just not how you do therapy correctly. I know he was probably what's called a Gestalt psychologist, and they probably do insist on things like that, but fuck him.
Alright, moving on from that dark abyss looking time. This story reminds me a whole lot of Neil Shusterman's excellent dystopian series Unwind Dystology. When Brian is sent to a special boarding school, he assumes it is because his parents are frustrated by his behavior. He's right, but the training he receives is something he never could have expected. Yeah, basically they imprison the actual kids and just clone perfect versions of them, or perfect with air quotes.
Yeah. The Stepford Wives equivalent of perfect. Stepford Children.
Not sure I get that reference, but okay.
Stepford Wives was a horror movie. I believe it first appeared in the 70s. It was about a group of housewives that had essentially been electroshock therapied and brainwashed into being the perfect, like Leave It to Beaver housewives.
Okay. Number 5, The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight. Original air date November 9th, 1996.
I'm sure this one must be a favorite of yours, given your scarecrow fixations.
It should be, but the worst part is I barely remember it.
For shame, sir. This is the
It
straw that
for,
breaks the
for the
camel's back.
record, it's been over at least 10 or so years since I've watched Goose.
Yeah, but this is definitely the straw that breaks the camel's back, or maybe just the scarecrow. What I do.
As a fan of Dark Knight of the Scarecrow, 1981, this episode invokes the horror classic by stressing the innate creepiness of cornfields and scarecrows. I've gone through a few cornfields.
I literally used to have one in my backyard
Well, bully for you.
because my neighbor used it, and he decided a while ago to just after he cut down that year's crop, he wasn't going to reseed it or anything. So it sat idle for a while, but it used to be a cornfield, and you can still tell.
Huh. I was told to get out of the cornfield once. Well, yeah, because I was told there were possibility of snakes being in there.
Our main concern was a black bear that we always thought hid in there. It used to give my mom nightmares because she was terrified of losing one of us to said black bear.
Hmm.
Not a terribly irrational fear, considering that I'm physically disabled and my little brothers are hyperactive spastics, kind of. But still, it gave her a run for her money quite a lot when I was a kid.
But I've never been afraid of scarecrows. I've always liked them.
Yeah, scarecrows are awesome and really, really not scary.
Well, it depends on how they're made. Like how
Oh
they.
yeah,
Yes.
I mean, if you basically turn one into a straw golem, that's a different story. But if you have the mystical wherewithal and the knowledge of how to turn something into a golem, why would you use just the scarecrow? There are other goleming materials that you should make use of.
It also has some of the best characters seen in the series, as well as a legitimately suspenseful story arc. Far from happy ending, though, what makes this episode especially notable, while the series usually defaulted to twist endings, this one is a notable exception. Really?
Yeah, this one is fairly straightforward in that I'm pretty sure all of the main cast wind up dead, and there's no like twist.
Huh. Number 4, Night of the Living Dummy. Original air date January 12th, 1996.
I was expecting to see this at number 1. I'm not gonna lie, because this is the one that everyone remembers.
Not really me.
I'm not saying that it's my favorite or anything. I'm just saying that based on like just sheer popularity, I would have expected this one higher. Um,
So
Then again, reading the Night of the Living Dummy books is part of what inspired me to always want a ventriloquist dummy.
well, I hate those things. Honestly, they're creepy as hell. I used to have a porcelain doll, and I always felt like its eyes were watching me, like it was in a china cabinet. Ahsoka Tano Gaming. I have never been afraid of snakes. Well, good for you.
Yeah, me either. I always found them cool. Spiders too. Spiders are cool.
No, fuck spiders and fuck snakes.
You're going Indiana Jones. I hate snakes.
Spiders too.
Uh, barring the ridiculously venomous ones that you should not ever allow anywhere near you, yeah, I think spiders are just cool. And snakes, apart from the poisonous ones, which you should avoid because poison, are also awesome.
Yeah, I got no problem with the quote unquote friendly spiders and snakes. It's just they're creepy looking as hell. So
I think having a tarantula would be awesome, honestly.
remind me never to go to your house if you do get one. Okay.
Believe me, you're far more likely to just be descended upon by a dozen daddy long leg spiders. Because every time I go to take a bath, there's always, especially in summer, invariably one of those in the tub, and I always try to turn off the water and save it before it drowns because I always feel bad for it.
Perhaps it's a symptom of my complete and utter dislike of dummies, but the Night of the Living Dummy saga severely creeped me out. Revolving around the exploits of a possessed-eyed dummy named Slappy, this episode featured a surprise twist that taught children there is no such thing as a happy ending. Evil will always find a way to linger. Classic that it is, you can find Night of the Living Dummy on DVD on Amazon, because there's a plug right there.
Yeah, and also take a note of how many of these revolve around somebody who doesn't know what the fuck they're doing, messes with magic they shouldn't mess with, and they pay the price for it. Because the Night of the Living Dummy is an example. The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, I believe, was an example. Because I remember the one kid yelling at his paw to not mess with that magic no more and whatnot. So leave the spellcasting to the professionals, or at least learn what the fuck you're doing, kids.
Ahsoka Tano Gaming. The Horrorland episode was bad, but the Horrorland book series was good. Yeah, like I said, I read a few of those books. Really, really fun and enjoyable and good.
I'll be curious to see if my favorite Goosebumps series of concepts makes it onto this list.
There should really be a revival of those books, and maybe even like the TV show.
See, I don't know if they could do it this year because I worry that if they did something like Goosebumps now, they would diversify it, and it would just become my social commentary, and I don't want that in my Goosebumps. Horror in general should be universal, but Goosebumps especially should be universal.
Well, I'd suggest myself of writing it, but I don't think I'm a good horror writer, so.
I think you could. All you'd have to do is binge read all of the books and try to stay as true to the book spirit as possible. Which honestly does not sound like a bad job to me. In fact, if you came to me complaining that you had to read all of the Goosebumps series again, I might start playing the world's smallest violin.
I think if anything, I'd try to do one book first, and if people
which to be fair is how RL started as well. Didn't it originally start with just a one-off on Mask special?
Are we talking TV show or book?
The show, didn't it start out with just a couple one-off movies, and then they decided to expand it into a series?
Not entirely sure, maybe. But we gotta get back to the list because we just went on a sidebar there. Oh,
Yep.
Title Gaming. I love Night of the Living Dummy Book. Good for you. Those things creeped me the hell out. As a kid and now. I hate those type of dolls and dummies or ventriloquist puppets.
Because the eyes follow you, and it's disturbing how happy they look.
Well, no, it's just the eyes that they have. They're empty and they're hollow, which can be said for a lot of dolls. Don't get me wrong, but it's just they have such big eyes that you just.
I actually like when the eyes on a piece of art will follow you. I've heard stories that like old-fashioned art critics and shit would always say that you could always tell a good piece of art of a portrait because the eyes would follow you.
Yeah. Okay. Number 3, A Night in Terror Tower. Original air date February 25th, 1996.
This was actually the first Goosebumps book, or the first Goosebumps episode I watched, because my cousin had it on VHS, which again should tell you just how long ago this was. And whenever he and I hung around, he would always be the one to encourage me to stay up late. And we would stay up late and we watched this, and this was the first Goosebumps related thing I watched.
Mm-hmm.
Fell in love instantaneously. So this one will always have a special place in my heart.
A trip to London leads two American tourists, siblings Eddie and Sue, to Terror Tower. They get locked in overnight and are forced to confront some especially angry historical figures who are out for blood. There are ample jump scares and an obvious emphasis on atmosphere that makes this one so scary that upon first viewing, my then 7-year-old cousin literally hid under the covers.
Different strokes for different folks, I guess. That person hid under the covers, and I immediately sought out all the Goosebumps material I could get my hands on.
Yeah. Number 2, Welcome to Dead House. Original air date June 29th, 1997.
I was wondering when we were going to see this one.
I don't think I ever saw this one, unfortunately.
I actually remember when I read the book for this. It's not my favorite Goosebumps, but it's a favorite among the fans. So again, I'm surprised it took this long to see it.
Oh, you know what? My favorite Goosebumps book, besides Attack of the Mutant, I first saw the episode for it, and then I read the book. It was what was it called? Creepy Street. Creepy Street.
Maybe I don't think that was it.
Hold on, I'm gonna look that up. I'm sorry. It's just
Yeah, you need to know. My favorite Goosebumps related thing was the Monster Blood series. I remember watching the episode first and then immediately wanting to go out and read the book, and I did, and it was awesome. And so was the sequel book, and I think there's even a third and a fourth sequel book to Monster Blood, and they are also awesome. Monster Blood is my favorite Goosebumps franchise. Though I will admit I like the backstory from the TV show better than the one from the book.
oh boy, it's gonna take a while.
Do 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 do
Sorry, folks. I'm just I forgot how many books there were.
And how many episodes there were. What was that?
What?
Oh, it just sounded like you face palmed. I wonder if something embarrassing or stupid happened.
Hmm. That's gonna bug me. I know it.
Try narrowing it down by looking up the episodes of the series rather than the number of books, because that might narrow it down a little
Right.
bit for you.
Okay. Huh. Oh, a shocker on Shock Street. That's what I was thinking of. A shocker on Shock Street. It was basically the whole story premise was it's based around these horror movies and that they were making a theme park out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the effects for the things. Basically, it was one of the thing. I would say it's like maybe one of the stories and episodes and stuff of Goosebumps that
Mm-hmm.
kind of helped me find love with movies and things.
Ah. So yeah, nostalgia.
Yeah. Basically, I think without that episode and book, I probably would not be a bigger fan in directing and writing and stuff than I would have been.
Well then, all hail a shocker on Shock Street, because if you weren't as big into those things, you might not have started a YouTube channel and we might not have met. So thank you very much, Goosebumps.
Yeah, okay. The Ghost Trope gets a creative update in this dark tale of fitting in. Amanda and Josh move to Dark Falls and are far from thrilled about it. Their troubles only increase when they discover that the new house also homes an array of ghosts hellbent on bringing them into the fold. Any kid who has been forced to move against his or her wishes will especially identify with this one.
Although I will say the way R.L. Stine described this place always made me want to move there. Like before you knew the twist ending, I always was like, because I've always been a fan of like those big old fashioned Victorian style houses and shit. So
Yeah, there are a few houses like downtown that look like kind of castles where I'm at.
mm.
They don't look Victorian, but well, not that I know of anyway. But they have a certain style to it. And I'm gonna be honest. Any house I look at that isn't my house makes me think that house looks a lot
Well,
better.
yeah, because of course your house is basically one misplaced stone or brick away from being condemned.
Actually, from collapsing, probably.
Yeah. So don't get angry and punch the walls. I want you to survive.
Yeah. So number one, and here's a shocker. I say that sarcastically, by the way. The
Let me
haunt.
guess. Haunted Mask.
Yes.
Yeah.
Original air date October 27th, 1995. The idea behind this one is classic horror. A cursed mask slowly attaches to its wearer till it becomes bloodthirstily real. Told from the perspective of Carly Beth, this episode plays with the idea of teen females feeling the need to wear a mask for acceptance.
Okay. Fuck you. You almost made it without pissing me off. But you made it a gendered issue, and now I'm pissed. don't read social justice woo into Goosebumps, please, my dear Elizabeth, I believe her name was.
Elizabeth, I believe it is. It's double illiterate, I remember.
Yeah, Elizabeth Aaron or something like that.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it was Aaron.
Elizabeth, you almost made it through that entire article without pissing me off. Not even CBR can manage that, but you couldn't. No, it has nothing to do with more femininity or more womanhood or fitting in or any of that. It has to do with the idea of loss of control and loss of identity. Politics be damned. There's nothing political about it. It is entirely unbiasedly philosophical. And that's why it works. Stop,
You're not gonna like the last sentence.
stop reading woo into places that aren't woo, please. Anyway, proceed.
Yeah, you're not gonna. I think it's gonna make you more angry.
Proceed, goddamn you.
That the mask in question is grotesque to the point of distraction is an interesting social commentary that is hard to resist. Oh god, that sounds like it hurts.
It's not a social commentary. It's a philosophical thought experiment, as are most of these kind of horror archetypal stories. It's a folk tale. It's a fucking. It's a fucking. It's a piece of American folklore. That's what most of the Goosebumps stories are. They're essentially the old-fashioned equivalent of creepypastas, and trying to undercut their universality by reading in sociological woo where there isn't sociological woo is not only just the most arrogant and stupid, short-sighted fucking thing I've heard in weeks, but also makes me extremely defensive because there are few things in this world I love quite so much as the dark wonders of occult-based media. And for you to read sociological woo into Goosebumps has touched something in me that I really, really shouldn't be letting out right now. So fuck you, you sociologically crazy bitch.
Yeah, she was doing fine until the last two sentences.
That honestly, that kind of pisses me off more because we almost, for the clear, we almost got through an entire session of this show without needing to go crazy on the fucking woo. And what does she do? Hit us in the fucking throat with 2 buckshots worth of woo at the very last hurdle. Fuck. Fuck me, fuck me, fuck me, fuck me. That just. Rage. Get your fucking social justice away from my occult shit, please. Especially occult shit that vaguely has ties to my childhood innocence. What little innocence I have left in me needs to be protected like a fine piece of, Fabergé jewelry. You fucking pricks who decide you need to claim and assimilate every ounce of culture.
Actually,
We
I
are
got
not Borg, and you will assimilate us over our fucking dead bodies. Thank you very much.
yeah, like I said, she was doing fine until the last two sentences of number one. And with that, I say to this. Right.
I'm sorry, folks. It's been a very, very long day. Because, like I said, to brainstorm before we came on, my phone decided it wasn't gonna work. Last night because we had a power outage and it caused like a short in my phone charger cord, which admittedly was on its last leg even then. So for most of last night and most of today, I didn't have a phone. And so I have a lot of unnecessarily perturbed, repressed anger over just bad luck and things not fucking going my way. So this just, this was like bringing a lit match to a powder keg and not expecting it to go off.
At least you had it out of your system.
Yeah, and I'm probably gonna be pissed at this for the rest of the night because I can't, like, I don't want to be one of those tools who says there's nothing sacred, but for fuck's sake, there's nothing sacred. Cause like this was an integral part of what made my childhood awesome. And every ounce of what makes my childhood awesome appears to be shit on by these stupid moralistic sociological fucking Puritans, and it just, can we not just leave this alone? Can we not have one thing that doesn't get bitten and consumed by the social justice pox? Okay, I think I might be calming down at least surface level now. I'm still deeply fucking pissed at this, but I'm deeply fucking pissed in a way that will involve quiet simmering rage and not overt yelling.
Yeah, I would suggest something that is in the line of a cult way of, like, honestly, I just say meditate, but I don't think occultists do that.
Yes, we do. I don't though, because I have a hard time coming down once I start meditating.
Okay.
I have a difficulty with what's called grounding because I get a magical high.
Okay.
And that's all I really need to say about that. So I haven't meditated in years. I do just enough like mental exercises to maintain a small fire of my own personal energy in me in case I need it for emergencies or like impromptu spell work. But aside from that, I try not to look too deep into my own my own subconscious abyss, because yeah, I'm not exactly comfortable with my own shadow side, as Carl Jung would put it.
Yeah.
But
So I guess with that, we do need to do comic recommendations.
yes, we can in fact do that. Go ahead.
Right. I had forgotten to mention this last week. Spawn.
Yes, always Spawn. Spawn is good pretty much any time of the year, but especially in a time of the year when you need some horror related shite.
Yeah. It actually, so I think it was last month or so that it got its 300th issue. Now over 300th.
The modern stuff is less entertaining than the old stuff, but you know, what can you do? As for my recommendations, I recommended, I believe it was last week, that there are Trick or Treat comics for people like me who are massive fans of the movie Trick or Treat. Update on that slightly, because I found out via Amazon that this year there's going to be released a Trick or Treat omnibus with all of the Trick or Treat comics in it, and it's only going to be like $20. So, for anyone interested, just wait until November. And yes, I know what you're probably thinking. Why the fuck would they release a Halloween related series in November rather than just in October, where it would make sense? Because the world is cruel and fuck you. That's the long and the short of it.
Also, since we were talking about Goosebumps for a little bit, just recommend the Goosebumps series.
Yes, definitely read the Goosebumps series. Definitely read or watch the Goosebumps series. Definitely read or watch Tales from the Crypt.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely
Haunting Hour as well, if you can find that.
Yeah, definitely get your hands on some Haunting Hour, because Haunting Hour not only I think is better than the Goosebumps series, but as far as like occult and mystical accuracy, it gets a stamp of approval from me, because in particular the My Sister the Witch episode, they literally quoted spells that I have used. So yeah, good on you, Haunting Hour.
Right.
So,
Also, well, pretty much a lot of series from R.L. Stein in terms of book series.
yeah.
School of Rotten. So I
Yeah.
looked it up. And there was also this one where it was a brother-sister ghost duo with a kid who's practicing to be a magician. It was a movie, but I can't remember what it was called.
Mostly ghostly.
Mostly ghostly. Turned out it was a book series. I read like one book of it in elementary school, but I could never find
Yeah,
any of the others.
the Disney Channel version is extremely cheesy, but might even be worth watching, regardless.
Yeah.
Back to comics. I don't think I've ever recommended Damien Hellstrom before,
I
but
don't think you have either.
but he is extremely good and extremely horror oriented. He's basically the Marvel sort of equivalent of like a John Constantine. So if you're interested, also speaking of horror related things that are worth checking out, if you've ever seen the movie The Crow, there are Crow comics, and those I would highly recommend as well. And also speaking of comics that are horror related, anything pretty much that has Clive Barker's name attached to it is generally good because he's really good with the horror, folks.
Yeah. Oh, right. I recommended this before, and I got the second issue of it now. Still haven't read it yet. Ragnarok, Breaking of Helheim by Walter Simonson. And if anyone knows who that guy is, I think you'll like that story. It is. It's basically Thor dies before Ragnarok happens, and he comes back to life as a Draugr, I believe. And after it happens, and yeah, it's a really interesting story because one thing, he's missing the lower part of his jaw, but he can still talk. So it's a zombie Thor trying to save the world after the world was already destroyed. It kind of harkens back to, I believe, Walter Simonson's run on Thor in the 70s, I believe, or 80s. Yeah, 70s. But it is really good from everything I've read so far. Also, Ahsoka Tano Gaming, I remember mostly Ghostly.
I do as well. I just don't remember liking it very much. I remember it being extremely cheesy and not in a good way.
What are you talking about, the movie or the books?
The movie. I don't remember ever getting a chance to check out the books.
I checked out one. I don't remember it. Keep in mind, this was elementary school, so a little over 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a while since I've read anything from R.L. Stein, unfortunately.
Maybe some rereading of his material is in order, purely for seasonal enjoyment reasons.
I need to get a fucking bookshelf for my books and stuff.
Yes, you do, and need I remind you, your birthday is coming up soon, so things to keep in mind to ask for, or to buy with your own money if people end up giving you more money and stuff.
I usually have a short list for a birthday thing. Anyway, with that, folks, we want to, from everyone at Podcast The Storm, we will say goodbye, adios, aloha, auf Wiedersehen, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
Shalom. Now fuck off.